I'm Greg Jones, fourth generation farmer and North State native. I've taught economics here in Chico for 20 years.
My name's Addison Winslow. I'm on the Chico City Council. I'm from here in Chico.
This is a debate. We've established the rules, which we all agreed upon. The audience is selective, with groups from each campaign and local dignitaries. We've also agreed that everyone in the audience will remain silent for the duration of the debate so we can all focus just on the performance on stage.
So for our illustrious candidates, we've agreed to time limitations. We want to encourage some depth of response, but we also have to keep within those time limits we've agreed upon. So when you have 15 seconds remaining, we have a little thing we'll hold up to signify that. Once your time's up, we'll say that. If you keep talking, we will ring a bell, and your mic's going to be cut until the next time it's your turn to speak again. We don't think we'll have to do that. But if you think you can push it a little bit, get more hair time. Greg would love to cut your mic. You'd make his mama proud. She's here. So with that, so here's the just brief format. So we got opening statements are going to be 90 seconds. 90 seconds are also going to be the responses to the questions that we have. And if we have a rebuttal, it's just going to be 45 seconds, and there might be a brief follow-up after that, and then it'll be 3-minute closing statements. And yeah.
Well, let's get into it, and each of you can introduce yourselves and your campaign.
Starting with Audrey Denney.
Starting with me. I'm Audrey Denney. I grew up on a family farm and bartended to pay for my 2 ag degrees at Chico State. I've spent the last 20 years teaching and as a nonprofit leader here in Butte County. And I know what folks are living through right now because I'm living through it with you. Costs are up, healthcare is too expensive, people are getting left behind, and there's a reason. It's because the system has been rigged for corporations and billionaires, and they keep in power by buying politicians on both sides of the aisle. My 2 opponents have both spent 12 years in the state legislature and have received contributions from 73 of the same corporate PACs, a Republican and a Democrat, taking money from the same interests, protecting the same system. If you want more of what Sacramento has to offer, you have your candidates. If you want system change, I am your option. I do not take a dime of corporate PAC money. While I've been building my life here, my Democratic opponent has taken 40 grand from his ballot measure slush fund and used it on Super Bowl tickets with lobbyists in the room. He's got FPPC complaints and FEC complaints, and I will be working and making decisions for you.
Next up is James Gallagher.
All right, thank you. It's good to be with you tonight. Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers in the room, and especially to my wife, Jana, who is a trooper and is here on Mother's Day. This election is about representation. And we had a really great representative in Doug LaMalfa, somebody who for 14 years served this area. And I was proud to stand with him. I was proud to stand with him during wildfire recovery for Paradise and the Ridge, for communities in Plumas County after the Dixie Fire. I was proud to stand with him to make sure that wildfire settlement payments from PG&E were 100% tax-free, both at the state level and at the federal level. I was proud to stand with him as we got record funding for affordable housing and tax credits, and we built thousands of new affordable homes right here in Butte County. Something I'm very proud of. I'm proud that we stood against the policies of Gavin Newsom in this state that have made your pocketbooks explode, that have exploded family budgets. Electricity rates skyrocketed, gas prices skyrocketed under that leadership. It's a failure, and we stood against it. And we had a voice here in this district. I plan to continue that same great representation that Doug LaMalfa represented.
Mike McGuire.
Thank you so much. Good evening. I'm grateful to our moderators, to Action News Now. Happy Mother's Day. My wife, Erica, is here. I love you very much, and I'm grateful for your amazing support. Look, I don't come from a family with any money. We don't have a name. But what we do have is each other. And today is Mother's Day, and I was raised by 2 amazing women, and that's who I'm thinking about today, my mom and my grandma. They taught me 3 things when I was growing up. You got to work hard, be the hardest working person in the room. You got to work together. The only way to make progress stick in life is to work together, and you never give up, especially when times are tough. I'm the first rural Democratic leader to lead the California State Senate in over a century, and we've delivered real results. doubling the number of state firefighters, expanding healthcare, keeping rural hospitals open, investing in our kids and public schools, and protecting the people of California from the ravages of Donald Trump. And that's why I'm running for Congress. The North State needs a proven fighter, not a person who will fold. I believe the highest calling in life is to help people, and I'd be honored to be able to work with you in the House of Representatives.
What would you propose the federal government do to improve affordability of energy while balancing other goals like grid reliability, wildfire resilience, and reduction of greenhouse gas emissions? And we're starting with you, Mike McGuire.
Thank you so much, Councilman. I don't think there is just one approach when it comes to energy policy for the North State. I think we have to focus on wildfire policy. I think we need to focus on water policy and cost of living. And that's why last year we delivered, with me in the lead, $60 billion in electric bill rebates for Californians over the next decade. We've led the largest build out of clean energy in American history right here in California. We've hardened our grid, made it more fire safe, and we've took profit out of PG&E's pockets when they are building a more wildfire safe grid. And we're also building the largest solar power plant in America, enough to be able to power 2.3 million homes across the state. In Congress, if we truly worry about cost of living, we have to end the war in Iran. We have to focus on more water storage, expand clean energy manufacturing, and ensure that we have a wildfire safe grid for electricity.
Great. Audrey Denney, let's see you next.
So our energy bills are high, our PG&E bills are high because PG&E is a private monopoly that faces no real accountability, right? Ratepayers have no alternative. We have no leverage. Every time that they get a fine, we pay the fine, right? Every time they have an infrastructure upgrade, we pay for that infrastructure upgrade. They socialize their costs and they privatize their profits. And the current system creates this perverse incentive where it is cheaper for them to actually pay the fines than it is for them to fix the infrastructure that is causing these wildfires and these deaths in the first place, right? And Congress can change the math on that. We need real federal criminal liability when wildfires caused by utilities take lives, right? And not just for the company, but for the executives themselves. We need wildfire mitigation plans from our utilities as part of doing business, not as just a suggestion. And we need ratepayer protections that are tied to every federal dollar. That means cost caps, refunds when services fail, and executive pay limits. And in the long term, I support things like community choice and things like SMUD, utilities that are privately and locally owned to make sure that they're locally accountable and accountable to ratepayers and not shareholder profits.
Excellent, right on time. Hey, James Gallagher, you're up next.
Well, first of all, I would not do what Mike and Gavin Newsom have done here in California. Now when Mike came in as the leader of the Senate, it was heralded as a great opportunity for rural California to be heard. He and along with the new speaker, Robert Rivas, were both at least stated to be from rural areas. And the whole thing was they were going to make things more affordable. They were going to help rural California. Nothing of the sort actually happened because Mike couldn't stand up to Gavin Newsom. He went through every policy that's raised your electricity prices, every policy that's raised your gas prices. In fact, Gavin even said that he jammed the legislature. He bragged about it in New York by passing his gas gouging legislation, which led to the closure of 2 refineries in the state, 18% of your refined gas capacity in the state. That's driving up your costs. He went along with all of the environmental policies that have jacked up your electricity. Do you know that they want renewable power, but they only count certain types of renewable power, solar and wind? You know how much hydropower we generate here in the first district, but it doesn't count because of policies that Mike McGuire went along with. So we're getting strapped. And by the way, in 1 year, in 2024, PG&E raised our rates 6 times, count them. At the same time, they made profit of $2.1 billion. Who's responsible for that? The PUC, who appoints them? Gavin Newsom. And did Mike ever stand up to them? Did he ever stop them from those rate increases? Did not happen. So I would not do what we've done here.
You get a 45-second rebuttal, Mike McGuire.
Thank you so much. So let's talk about PG&E, and let's talk about what Democratic leaders have done. Number one, we have forced PG&E to be able to bury lines in the most wildfire-threatened communities. We've taken away returns when PG&E makes their equipment more wildfire safe. We've taken away those financial returns for the company. We've advanced the first of its kind system where we hold their executives accountable if they're not performing. And we've made their system more wildfire safe. And we've stepped up to be able to stop them from contributing in political campaigns. But if we want to talk about energy prices, let's end this war in Iran that Mr. Gallagher and Mr. Trump are supporting 110% of the way.
Excellent, excellent. Next question.
Do we get rebuttals to that?
I feel like he gets a rebuttal. He said his name.
Yeah, give it a 15-second rebuttal.
And of course, I said his name too, but bottom line is actually before the war, prices were going down. Energy prices nationally were going down, right? They weren't here in California. Why? Because of bad policy. And even now, with the war going on, which has had an impact on energy prices, on gas prices, on the East Coast, $4 a gallon, $6 a gallon here in California. Policy.
When I started teaching 20 years ago, I used to tell my students that debt would be the defining issue of our generation. Our debt stood at $9 trillion. In a few weeks, we're going to be at $40 trillion. Our deficit our debt interest payments will be $1 trillion. In less than 10 years, it will be $2 trillion. What specific cuts or tax changes would you support to address this? Assemblyman Gallagher.
Well, again, I think before you talk about what you're going to do at the federal level, we need to look at what you've done in the state level. And so both Mike and I have been in the legislature, as Audrey said. We've been there for 12 years. It's a very different record between the two of us. And when you look at these things, Mike actually doubled the budget, 100% increase. In 2015, we had a budget of $162 billion. Now we have a $321 billion budget. We bankrupted the Medi-Cal program because we provided health care to illegal immigrants. It was a $9 billion hit to the budget. We had to borrow $3 billion to make that payment. That's your taxpayer dollars. They continue to fund the high-speed rail, $1 billion a year. That project is ridiculous. It's now going to cost $231 billion to build. It is not feasible. And yet Mike put that number one on the list for funding. You know what got last in his own legislation that he authored? Wildfire prevention funding. That is ridiculous. It's an outrage to the people of this district to put high-speed rail funding above our safety and the people in this district, especially after everything that we've been through. And that's what I'm talking about. We need to stop doing that. If you're going to go to this DC and be fiscally responsible, how can you stand by that record where we balloon the budget double? Where we're in debt, where our pension liability is in the billions of dollars right now. That's not a record you take to D.C. We need to cut the waste and fat. There's been a lot of that identified, and we'll be working on that in D.C.
You're next, Senator McGuire.
Thank you so much. And I'll need those 45 seconds as well. So let's talk about debt.
By all means.
Under Donald Trump, our deficit is the largest it's ever been. And I encourage you to take a look at the Google. If you look at the Google, you will see that deficits actually come down under Democratic presidents and go up under Republican presidents. And here's why the deficit has gone up. It's because Republicans in Washington, D.C. have given away our treasury, $2.2 trillion in tax cuts to billionaires and corporations. And guess what? The rest of us, we're left to be able to suffer. And you know how they're paying for it? Republicans in Congress are paying for it by taking our health care away. $1 trillion in cuts to Medicaid, which means 3 million Californians will lose their health care next year. Oroville Hospital, 85% of the revenue comes from 2 federal sources, Medicaid and Medicare, and they're already in Chapter 11 bankruptcy. It's time for a change. Let's get a Democrat to represent the North State.
Do you want the other 45 seconds, Senator?
That's great. Or do you want Ms. Denney to go?
Yeah, no, please.
Really, whoever. Is it my turn?
Yes, please.
Okay. So growing up on a family farm, you learn pretty quickly that if you're spending more money than you're bringing in, you're not going to keep the farm for long. Unfortunately, that was our family's story, which is one of the reasons I get so frustrated when I hear politicians talking about fiscal responsibility and then giving away massive tax cuts to the wealthiest among us and billionaires, like Republicans did with One Big Beautiful Bill, right? They gave massive tax cuts to the wealthy, adding $3.4 trillion to our deficit, meaning that in this moment, for the first time, our deficit is bigger than our GDP, first time since World War II. One Big Beautiful Bill was the largest single transfer of wealth from the working class to the upper class. And we're spending $25 billion and counting on a war in Iran that no one authorized, right? That Congress didn't authorize. And the path forward is really clear. 88 companies, 88 corporations paid zero income tax in 2025, and they made over $100 billion, right? We need to make corporations pay their fair share. We need to end the blank checks for wars no one authorized, and we need to cut the $900 billion of Pentagon waste that goes out the door every year that we can't account for.
You're awarded 45 seconds.
Thank you so much. I'd like to be able to cover firefighting. The reason why California professional firefighters and CAL FIRE firefighters, Local 2081, support our campaign is because I've led the effort to be able to double the number of state firefighters in this state. After Donald Trump has cut the federal firefighters, more engines on the road, more airplanes on the sky. We've expanded the Office of Emergency Services here in the state of California after Trump cut FEMA, and we've passed groundbreaking legislation that's holding unscrupulous contractors accountable after they've gone after insurance companies. But let's talk about the facts. James, you voted against funding an additional 2,000 CAL FIRE firefighters just 2 years ago. And then you voted against relief funding that would have hired hundreds more. That is shameful.
Time. I have one follow-up question because I didn't
Did I
quite
get a response to that? Or?
didn't get a response that I wanted. But I heard both Ms. Denney and Senator McGuire address H.R. 1, but the vast majority of federal spending is concentrated in Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and interest on the debt, almost 70%. I'd like to ask you, what is one reform to entitlements you'd be willing to support, even if it's politically unpopular? Assemblyman Gallagher.
I mean, I think, one, we've been doing it. We need to get federal spending under control, and it's gotten out of control. That's one of the reasons why Doge happened, is you had to look through and find the waste that was out there, and we saw a whole lot of it. We see a whole lot of it here in California. $270 million that one fraudulent doctor billed Medi-Cal in this state, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. Then we saw what was going on with hospices. That's money that's going away from us, man. That's money that's going away from people who desperately need that health care. And Mike, to talk about CAL FIRE, about how you helped them, you took their budget out of the general fund, where essentially the money is guaranteed, and you put it into the greenhouse gas fund, which depends on how many credits we sell. So you actually made their budget less stable is what you did. And you put wildfire prevention funding last, period, and high-speed rail first.
Time.
Those are the wrong priorities.
Time.
Is it my turn?
Senator McGuire.
To answer that, okay.
Here's where my priority will be, is to restore the cuts that Donald Trump has made to the Veterans Administration. Republicans have cut 40,000 medical staff and professional staff from the Veterans Administration, turning their back on the women and men of our armed forces. You know what else they've done? They've cut tens of thousands of workers from the Social Security Administration. They want to privatize it. That's why we need to repeal the tax cuts for billionaires. We need to be able to repeal the cuts to Medicaid and fund healthcare, Medicare for all, healthcare for every Californian and every American.
Ms. Denney.
All right, I want to push back on your frame, Greg, because healthcare, Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security benefits, VA benefits, these are not entitlement programs. These are earned benefits that people have been paying into their whole lives. And yeah, there are some changes that I'm going to make. Social Security, guess what? That's staying fixed or increased a tiny bit every year, but that's not keeping pace with how seniors' rent is increasing, right? You're on a fixed income, everything gets more expensive, our seniors are hosed. Like, we're not touching Social Security. We are increasing Social Security. We're re-indexing how that is figured out. And you want to know how we're going to pay for it? We're going to take off the payroll tax cap that keeps billionaires from paying their fair share. And so that way my generation and Addis's generation can get some of that money back that we paid in.
We're gonna move on to next question. Rural communities here in the North State, and for the most part across the country, face some challenges. Communities are declining in population, buildings in old downtowns are left vacant, educated young people largely leave for jobs elsewhere, and what is left are higher rates of retired and elderly people, higher rates of disability and reliance on government welfare. So I want to ask, what do you see as the problem underlying this, if you do see a problem, and what can we do as a government and as a society to revitalize rural American communities? We're going to start with Audrey.
Ooh, yay. Rural decline is not inevitable. It is a result of policy choices. And we saw that in Northern California when all of our lumber mills shut down, right? That was a federal policy choice. And no one came back to rebuild the economies that were decimated when those mills left, right? For too long, our communities have been treated as places that you should extract resources out of instead of invest in. I believe in career and technical education because I'm a product of it. 4 years in high school ag taught me leadership and work ethic and service. And I believe that every single young person deserves that same pathway to a career. And I don't think that it should have to come with 4 years in debt, right? And in the meantime, at the same time, our region has work that desperately needs doing. Forest restoration, watershed management, ag processing, food manufacturing, healthcare. All of these are industries that have work to be done and should be done by people living here. That means federal government investing in apprenticeships, pre-apprenticeship programs, some stackable certificates like Butte and Yuba colleges are already doing, and requiring local hiring on every single federal dollar that comes in for an infrastructure or a restoration project. But workforce training alone isn't enough, right? Young people need communities where they want to raise their families. And that means rural broadband, that means healthcare, that means housing, that means quality education. And these are the sorts of priorities that I would invest in and when you send me to DC.
Thank you. McGuire, you're up next.
Thank you so much. I'd like to talk about what I've done in the California State Senate, delivering for rural California, and what I'd be honored to do to deliver for the North State. I feel like rural America has been written off for way too long. And I'm the first rural Democrat to be elected Senate leader, and I've used that authority to be able to deliver for the unique needs of rural communities. We've expanded funding for rural schools in every corner of this state. We've rebuilt decaying schools all throughout Northern California. We have delivered $6 billion in rural broadband funding. We've delivered billions of dollars for rural roads, highways, and bridges. We're building the largest healthcare education job hub in Northern California right now in the Senate district that I represent, because I champion that. The largest non-prison investment in rural California in 50 years is the money that we secured to transition Humboldt State to Cal Poly Humboldt. We've launched career training programs at Mendocino College, College of the Redwoods, and we are focusing on generating more power in the communities that I represent. And here's what we've also done. We've saved every Planned Parenthood health center in the state of California when Donald Trump and Republicans defunded them. That's what the type of fighter we need. I'd be that fighter, and I'd be honored to work for you.
Thank you. James Gallagher, you're up next.
Well, one thing we can do in rural California is get back into the forests. And this is something that actually Audrey and I agree a lot on. You know, we need to put better investments back into getting our young people back into industries that will support our communities. And I'm proud to have stood beside a lot of my colleagues in the legislature. Heather Hadwick is here from the North State, where we've made big investments over the last 10 years in career technical education. Butte College has a great welding program that many people are taking advantage of, and they're coming out making really good money when they graduate from that program. Shasta College has created a logging industry CTE program that many people are taking advantage of. We need to continue to support those things, and we can do that at the federal level. You know who else really helped us with federal legislation? Doug LaMalfa, who helped make sure that secure rural schools got passed and extended, and schools got that money that they desperately needed. I've been proud of fighting for those things. But the real truth is, why has rural California declined? It's because the Democrats in the state legislature have raised their costs dramatically and killed their jobs. They want everybody to go to electric trucks. We have truckers. It's a major industry in the North State. People had to get rid of perfectly good trucks because of regulations they passed. Nobody including Mike, the leader of the Senate, would not stand up to CARB, California Air Resources Board, that has been devastating to farmers, to truckers, to the Water Resources Board, who declared emergency drought regulations, and then the legislature, along with Mike, made them perfect and made them permanent in the Scott Valley. So a place that has no drought is restricted on using their own water.
45-second rebuttal.
Thank you so much. There isn't a ribbon cutting that Republicans don't like, even though they vote against all the projects they're cutting the ribbon for. So let's talk about career training. You know who delivered career training here in the state of California? Democrats. You know who delivered the $1 billion ongoing is Jerry Brown, and I worked with him when he was governor, and we've only increased it permanently. You know who's delivered career training for Northern California? I have. We're building 2 new fire academies in Northern California, even as we speak, a construction trades academy, 2 new nursing academy. We started it back up at Cal Poly Humboldt, and we doubled it at Sonoma State. If you want someone who knows how to deliver for working families, for good jobs, I'd be grateful to have your vote.
Do I get 45 seconds because we agreed?
No, I like that though. I was thinking about it.
Much of today's federal policymaking under administrations of both parties is increasingly being carried out through executive action rather than through Congress and regular legislative order. Do you see this as a problem? And if so, how would you reverse this trend? We'll start with Assemblyman Gallagher.
Yeah, it's a major problem, and I'm the only one with a record of actually standing up to executive overreach and power. I sued the governor when he was by executive order shutting down your businesses, when he was forcing 2-year-olds to mask up, when he was shutting down churches and not letting people go to worship under their First Amendment rights. I stood down the governor. I took him on, right? You know who never stood up to Gavin Newsom? Mike McGuire. On every policy initiative he wanted to push, Mike went along with it. When Gavin Newsom didn't want you to vote on Prop 36, our public safety initiative that passed with 70% of the vote, Mike did the bidding of Gavin Newsom and tried to get it taken off of the ballot. He tried to introduce poison pill amendments into public safety bills to try and kill them on purpose in order to stop Prop 36 from going on the ballot. That is horrendous, right? And not only that, it's how he votes and hurts our rural communities. When dangerous child rapists who went on 3 life sentences into prison, and he votes for a bill that allows them out at age 50, that's outstanding. It's unbelievable. I mean, these are the kinds of policies that are getting passed. You might say that you're helping rural California, you might say that you're for us, but it's how you vote, and it's the policies you pass that really matter. And so we need to stand up to executive overreach. Absolutely. We need to legislate. We need to actually pass bills. Here's another one. The electric mandate that was mandate electric trucks and electric buses. That was an executive order. It didn't even go through the legislature. Thank God the Republican Congress shut it down.
Time. Ms. Denney.
So Congress is designed to be the branch that's closest to the people, to legislate, to control spending, and to protect from executive overreach. And yes, to answer the question, I do believe that over the last decades, Congress has been continuing to cede that authority, right? And as Congress cedes that authority, I think it's really interesting because members will quietly say, oh, the executive has too much overreach. And then they'll give away their power because making hard votes and actually holding people accountable is politically inconvenient. And they do this because they spend 4 to 6 hours of every single day fundraising from corporate PACs and wealthy donors, right? They are beholden to a system that works for the wealthiest in corporations and not for us. And they're so busy trying to hoard the little bit of power that they get when they get there that they don't do anything with it. We absolutely need massive reforms to Congress to ensure that they hold the executive accountable. We have to restore congressional war powers and the power of the purse. We have to ban congressional stock trading. And we have to have real oversight over the executive and not performative hearings that are designed to have viral clickbait. And these are the things that will help the American people restore just an iota of trust in our congressional body.
Senator McGuire.
Thank you so much, Mr. Moderator. And I do believe I had another 45 seconds.
Yes.
Thank you so much. So let's talk about Congress. This do-nothing Congress right now, they're not doing their damn job. They're bending a knee. They're bending a knee to the most corrupt president in modern American history. Here's what Congress's job is: pass budgets on time, write real laws, put a damn check on a runaway executive who's more concerned about golden ballrooms than your health care. That's what's happening right now in Congress. In the state capitol, I have passed dozens of laws that have benefited rural communities and rural residents in every corner of this state. I show up, I do the work, and I build coalitions. In Congress, I will work with anybody to deliver a better life for the North State. And I'm going to fight any attempts that Donald Trump takes to be able to put ice on our streets, to be able to take more health care away. I will fight for Medicare for all. I will fight to repeal the billionaires' tax cuts, and I'll hold ICE accountable.
And now your rebuttal.
Okay. So let's talk and be blunt about the parole board. We all know the parole board is independent, but I do not want to be lectured by the one person on this stage who's been endorsed by Donald Trump. Donald Trump is in the Epstein files several thousand times, and he is covering up for one of the top sex traffickers in the United States of America. Donald Trump knows that you're going to cover up for him. You're going to cover up the lies and the corruption, and it's time to release the files and protect the victims.
One follow-up question, Senator. I agree that transparency is important. It's even in Tehama County, we think it's important. But reporting has shown that non-disclosure agreements were used at the state capital annex project, and critics argue that public visibility into the project's costs were limited. How would you address that and reconcile the two positions between transparency with the Epstein files and the funding of our state capital annex?
I think we've been very open about the budget, and let's talk about the Epstein files. There is only one party here in the United States of America that are standing up for sex traffickers. That's Donald Trump. Donald Trump is in the Epstein files numerous times, thousands of times. And the reason why he is endorsing Republicans all across this country is because he needs to continue the cover-up in the Epstein files. Plain and simple.
Community project funding is what we call, it's one of the words for congressionally directed spending. In other words, an earmark funding for specific projects in the Congressional District. These were brought back in 2021 with the bipartisan infrastructure law, and under Congressman Doug LaMalfa, the city of Chico had projects like the widening of Cohasset Road to the Chico Airport, and recently a smaller project that was like bank stabilization along Big Chico Creek. So the first question is, do you support congressionally directed spending in general? And then describe at least 3 specific infrastructure projects in our area, and to be clear, we're focusing here on Butte, Glenn, Tehama counties, that you would like to earmark as our member of Congress. And I will say what we don't want to hear, even though it is the right answer, is whatever the local governments ask for. We're going to start with Senator McGuire.
So let's talk about how we can deliver. So there's some true priorities that I think we need to focus on. Number one, we need to repeal the Medicaid cuts because that's the only way that we're going to keep rural hospitals open. Number two, we need to reopen Glenn County Medical. We need to establish a distressed hospital fund. The only way that we're going to do that is to be able to get upfront funds immediately, tens of millions of dollars. I would continue with fuel reduction projects, especially along the Skyway. Highway 99 up in Tehama County, as the supervisor knows, we need to continue hard on that rehab project. We need to focus on Glenn County groundwater for residents and agricultural community. And we have to help rural fire departments. I've delivered 11 fire engines, brand new fire engines for rural fire districts over the last 36 months. Haven't just delivered for CAL FIRE, doubling the number of CAL FIRE firefighters. I've delivered for local rural fire departments. And we've also delivered on rural broadband, advancing a $6 billion rural broadband project that connects rural businesses and healthcare institutions and schools. That's all state funding. Imagine what we can do if there is a Democrat in Congress right now to be able to deliver what we've delivered for rural California right here in the Golden State.
Next up is Assemblyman Gallagher.
Well, Mike, I'm glad you brought up the distressed hospital loan. That actually was established by state law a couple years ago. And you, as the second in command in the state, right behind Gavin Newsom, not one dime from that loan program made it into CD1 hospitals. Not one dime. You know, and I was advocating that we should be getting that fund for places like Orchard Hospital, for Glenn Medical Center. Unfortunately, they never saw a dime of that money. Now, we're doing another distress loan program, which I think is a very good thing. But let's not mistake ourselves or fool ourselves. They were already in trouble before anything happened at the federal level, and it's because of the state mandates on hospitals. You know how hard it is to build a hospital or extend a wing in a hospital these days with all the regulatory and ABC agencies at the state level? It's unbelievable. And that is why, like Glenn Medical Center got in trouble. That's why Orchard Hospital and others have gotten in trouble. Oroville is because of those mandates and the high cost of doing anything in California. And so we do need to make an investment in our healthcare, absolutely. Doug LaMalfa got the job done. When H.R. 1 passed, $50 billion was set aside for rural healthcare. That was his work. Let's go get that money and make sure it's invested here locally. And by the way, let's invest in reservoirs and water storage. Sites Reservoir, we could raise Shasta Dam and increase our water storage. Mike wants to take dams down. He went along with the Klamath Dam removal. He's sitting on the sidelines while Potter Valley is about to get taken down, and that's going to be terrible for all those, not just ranchers, but many people who are involved and rely on that water system. We should be investing in new storage, not taking it down.
Okay, Ms. Denney.
All right. So my three, first of all, yes, I believe that congressional earmarks are very important, and I'm very glad that they got back. Last time I ran, they weren't around, and so very pleased. My three, to answer the question, are all about Butte, Glen, and Tehama infrastructure. Because in our part of the world, our infrastructure is public safety, right? Very first thing, FEMA has pre-disaster mitigation funds that we can earmark a chunk out of for our rural evacuation corridors. We all know, we've all lived through what happens when massive fires make roads unpassable, right? People can't get out, firefighters can't get in. Highway 36 is the most dangerous highway in the state of California. That has to be a #1 priority. Second, behind that, rural broadband. Glad to hear that we're making progress on rural broadband at the state level, but if future-proof fiber isn't connected to every single home, it doesn't matter if fiber goes into Taylorsville if it's not connected to the homes in Taylorsville, right? And so the way that we do that is hold telecom companies accountable and say, every federal broadband dollar, if you want it, it's got to come with the condition that you're going to connect homes and not on the expense of the homeowner, right? And third, Glenn County levees, man, decades they've needed upgrades. And so that is another key priority for me, is to make sure that Congress invests in levee modernization in our area.
That's excellent. We get a rebuttal on the hospital claims from Senator McGuire.
Thank you so much. Yeah, rebuttal on the hospital. 3 million Californians will lose their health care by mid-2027. The reason being is Republicans in Congress took it away from them. 3 million. These aren't my numbers. What I'm about to say, the California Hospital Association has said 6 to 10 hospitals will close because of the Republican cuts in Medicaid by the end of 2027. And to make matters worse, Republicans in Congress cut the subsidies to the Affordable Care Act. If you were on the Affordable Care Act, your medical bills are $1,500 more this year than they were last. How can you afford that when you're already spending $2,400 more this year because of the Trump tariff taxes? Republicans in Congress are making our lives more.
On that note, for agricultural communities in Northern California, export markets are critical. How should the United States balance protecting domestic industries while avoiding retaliatory tariffs that hurt farmers? We will begin with Ms. Denney, I believe.
Woo! Okay, so I want to broaden this frame. I could talk about farmers, but I know both of my friends are going to do that as well. Because tariffs don't just hurt farmers, they hurt working families, right? When Trump puts tariffs on imports, families in Chico and Red Bluff, we see higher prices at the grocery store, at the gas station. Small businesses who are already struggling are going out of business. Our economists are estimating that American families are going to see $2,500 more in prices this year because of these tariffs. Here in Northern California, we're getting hit twice, right? Our farmers, our small businesses are getting hit on the production side with supplies, equipment, fertilizer costs increasing, and on the market side that we depend on. We lost almost like 25% of the California wine market overnight to Canada because of the tariffs. And so when we use these retaliatory tariffs as blanket tariffs. They hurt everybody, and the pain ripples through our local economies. So I support targeted trade enforcement when it actually protects critical industries, and doesn't continue to just force corporations to outsource jobs overseas while raising our prices and posting record profits. Right now, what we see is corporate profiteering that's dressed up as trade policy, and that has to stop.
Assemblyman Gallagher.
You know what's hurt American farmers and workers? Free trade agreements, where foreign countries were allowed to take advantage of our farmers, where they were allowed to take advantage of our workers, where outsourcing went like crazy. Finally, someone is standing up and say, let's stand up for the American worker. Let's have good trade deals that are fair. Fair trade is what we need. And that's what's been going on with these tariffs as a leveraging mechanism to get better trade deals for our farmers, better trade deals with India for our nut farmers here in the region, better trade deals with Japan for our rice farmers in this industry. That's in process. That's happening, you know? And in the meantime, also not allow foreign goods to come in here, like foreign wine grapes, for example, that are coming in and that are being allowed. We should stand against that. We should use that trade power so that it doesn't undermine our wine grape growers who are now tearing out their vineyards because of this. And to add insult to injury, people being able to advertise their wine as American wine under that. So finally, somebody's standing up. But you know what else hurts? Bidenflation. A whopping 20% inflation hit American farmers, workers, everyone under the Biden administration. And you guys are talking about tariffs. Tariffs is 0.7% of the inflation right now under President Trump, which, by the way, is 3%, under 3% now. You guys raised it 20%, and you're talking about us? No. Bottom line, this is the issue. We need to fight for fair trade, and we need to make sure that we're looking out for it's also about looking out for their costs. When your fuel costs go up to $6, $7 for diesel because of your bad policy, that's what's hurting farmers.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, let's talk tariffs. The average American cost of living is up $2,400 more today than it was this time last year. $2,400. You know why? Because Republicans in Congress and the Trump tariff taxes. Let's keep going. Fertilizer. Fertilizer is up $100 more per ton today than it was last year. More? Farm equipment. Farm equipment is up 16% year to year. Why? Because of Donald Trump, Republicans in Congress advancing tariffs. Almonds, walnuts, rice, one of the number one importers of those three commodities, Asia. You know who's cut back on that? Asia, because of the Trump tariff taxes. Canada didn't just tariff California wine. They took all of California wine off the shelves, a $1.2 billion hit. And you know who pays for the tariff costs? The American people. The American people are eating 94% of the tariff costs. Foreign governments are eating 6%. And to add insult to injury, you have ICE out there threatening deportation of farm workers who are the heart of the agricultural industry in this state. It is shameful, and we have to repeal the tariffs and hold ICE accountable.
Thank you. Well, our last question before we get to closing statements, and I found in teaching for the last 20 years, I think a lot of teachers find this, is that eventually it comes back to civics. So as we approach the 250th anniversary of our country's independence, how do you assess our progress toward the founding ideals of natural rights, equality, and government by consent? And we'll begin with Senator McGuire.
Thank you so much. And again, really grateful for everyone who's attended. 250 years ago, this country was founded on a radical idea that the government answers to the people and not the other way around. And that idea is now being tested right now by this fascist president, by a president who thinks the law doesn't apply to him, by a Congress that won't do their job and takes a knee to Donald Trump each and every day, by people in power who would rather rip the country apart than provide them health care. The founders of this nation gave us three co-equal branches. They gave us the First Amendment for a reason. They gave us free and fair elections for a reason. I'm running for Congress because those institutions are always worth fighting for. There is a red line in the sand, and that is that our democracy is non-negotiable. We have to do the work, we have to show up, we have to protect voting rights, and we have to disagree with each other without hating each other. Pass laws even when the election doesn't go our way. That's the deal that the founders made with all of us, and I intend to keep it if I'm elected to Congress.
Thank you. Ms. McGuire, you're next. Excuse me. Ms. Denney, you're next.
That's her right
Hot
there.
dang.
Down there.
That's that one.
Hot damn.
Erica.
Breaking news.
So my turn.
Yes.
That's Audrey Denney speaking.
Yes.
I get my 90 seconds. Okay. So as we mark 250 years of America, I think we need to be really honest about where we are. Too many Americans no longer believe that the system is working for them. Right? We've seen courts get defied. We've seen the First Amendment under attack. We've seen insurrectionists pardoned. We've seen a billionaire take a chainsaw to federal agencies with no real accountability. And we see a system that is not working for ordinary people anymore. And the people who see that, they're not wrong, right? And in that, I still so deeply believe in the American experiment. And the most radical and powerful part, the most radical and powerful founding ideal was this ideal that ordinary people should govern themselves, right? Not kings, not oligarchs, not concentrated power, ordinary people. And the story of America has always been this tension between our highest ideals and our failure to fully live up to them. And so it has become the job of every single generation to try to do that, to try to expand who democracy works for. And that is the call of our generations in this room right now. And because the next chapter of the American story should be one where we fully live into the promise of a government for the people, by the people, and of the people, it should be one where we can demonstrate to the world that we can govern ourselves again.
Assemblyman?
I'm thinking of one of those foundational principles, no taxation without representation. Now, we had a great representative who looked out for us. I talked about his record. And you know how I know it was a good one? Because 65% of the people of this district voted for him last time, just 2 years ago. Because every single county in his district voted no on Prop 50. Because actually 7 out of the 9 counties that are in the new CD1 voted no on Prop 50 because they knew they had good representation. Now, I talked about Mike's record. You know, when Mike McGavin, I'm sorry, they're so interchangeable, it's hard sometimes. But after they raised all of your costs and killed jobs in the North State, what did Mike get out of that? He got a district drawn for himself. In Prop 50, this district was drawn so that the voters in his area that he's represented, will far outnumber people over here on this side of the district. That's wrong. And we need to stop this kind of redistricting wars that's about politics instead of about people. We need to make sure that places are represented, not politicians. And so, you know what? I'm fighting for our people, man. I'm fighting for the representation that Doug LaMalfa so greatly gave us. His wife is here tonight, Jill LaMalfa. I'm proud to have her support. I'm proud to have the support of so many people across this district who are tired of the same old politics and they're tired of the same old status quo. Don't send people to Washington, D.C. who have destroyed California. Don't send people to D.C. who have destroyed rural California.
45-second rebuttal to you, Senator.
Thank you so much. Some of us on this stage are running against California. I'm running to be able to represent you, to build a stronger Golden State. Let's talk about Prop 50. Prop 50 passed by 29 points. That was an overwhelming margin.
Not here.
And the reason why Prop 50 passed by 29 points is because they don't want their health care taken away. They want to put food on the table, but they can't because SNAP was cut by Republicans, food benefits by $3 billion. They want to keep their hospitals open. They want health care for every American. That's why they passed Prop 50. They're fed up, they're fired up, and now we're going to flip the first.
Sit, we're right on time. You guys I'm really impressed by all of you. We're going to go into closing statements, and we're going to start. This is a 3-minute closing statement, just enough time, and we're going to start with Assemblyman Gallagher.
Well, I'll pick up right where I left off, which is it's so important that we have a voice. That's foundational to our representative democracy, is that every place have a voice and have someone who's fighting for them. For 12 years, I've done just that. I've been in the minority. I don't have a lot of power in Sacramento, but I've hit way above my weight. And we've gotten funding for Sites Reservoir, for example, almost $1 billion worth. I worked in a bipartisan manner to ban ultra-processed food in our school lunches program. I've worked with farmers to make sure that they can get better results for their products that they get. And I want to get them into our local schools, our local institutions. We're living in a country right now, a state right now, where kids are eating bad food and we grow the best, most nutritious food in the world. That has to change. I want to work on that. Doug LaMalfa looked out for us each and every day. He went back to Washington, D.C., and what was always on his mind? You. At the end of every State of the Union, he waited till the very end to talk to the president, Republican or Democrat, about this district and about what we need. And one of the biggest things was wildfire prevention and removing the barriers so that we can get those projects done. I've run that legislation for multiple years now. I don't have a lot of power, but I keep pushing for it to streamline the process so we can do more, we can increase the pace and scale of that work. It died in Mike McGuire's Senate just last year. We're not getting that. And our wildfire funding just went to last place under his own funding formula. That's outrageous in a district that has been ravaged by wildfire. I've stood by victims as we've come up from the ashes. I think of Paradise Mayor Steve Crowder, who couldn't be here tonight, but who fought tooth and nail to help his community come back. I've worked with them to help do that. Doug LaMalfa delivered $80 million to restore that water system, working across party lines. And I'm glad you brought up Glenn Medical Center. It is going to reopen. We actually saved it, me and Doug, back in 2015, and we're on our way to doing it again. Doug worked across the aisle with Adam Schiff to get critical access designation back to Glenn Medical Center. And I will work across the aisle. I already am, actually, with Mike Thompson. We got $9 million for peach growers in this district who've been devastated by the Del Monte bankruptcy. I will continue to get things done. You've seen what I've done in the minority. Imagine what I can do when we're in the majority.
Next up is Senator McGuire.
Thank you so much. Again, I am so grateful that each of you are here in person and for all of you who are watching tonight. I want to talk about the reality that I think faces the North State. I'm a firm believer that there's more that unites us than divides us. No matter if you're a Republican in Susanville or a Democrat in Chico, you want to send your kid to a good public school. You want to keep your hospital open. You want to keep your health care. You want to afford a home in the community that you love. And you want a more wildfire-safe hometown. And that's what I deliver each and every day. Democrats, Republicans, Independents, and everyone else in between. I currently represent 3 Republican counties in the state Senate. One of them is Ruby Red, Trinity County. They have never voted for me in my entire life. But here's what I believe. You go where the need is greatest. When Trinity County needed new fire equipment, I brought together all the fire chiefs to be able to deliver $1 million for new communication equipment and new vehicle extrication equipment. We've rebuilt their 2 local high schools in the county, working with the state allocation board, rebuilding them after they're infested with black mold. We built the first 24/7 emergency evacuation center that they've ever had. The first all-weather track, we built it. We secured the funds and built it. Now, they'll never vote for me, but that's okay. Because right now in government, we need to put people first. And look, there's a lot of issues that are facing this country. A rogue president, a do-nothing Congress, healthcare stripped away, rising costs, voting rights, billionaires getting $2.2 trillion in tax cuts, and the rest of us getting screwed. Here's what I believe, and here's what I'll deliver for you. I show up, I listen, I deliver. In the first 5 months of this campaign, we hosted 36 community town halls. I'm honored to be endorsed by the Chico Enterprise Record, the Oroville Miner, the Red Bluff Daily News, nurses, teachers, firefighters, every Democratic county supervisor in the entire 1st Congressional District. But the most important endorsement would be you. I'd be honored to have your vote on June 2nd, and I appreciate this opportunity to be able to have the discussion about the top issues facing the North State.
Thank you. Our final closing statement will come from Miss Audrey Denney.
The lady always gets the last word. I hope that through our discussion tonight, you've been able to see a couple things. And one of the things that I hope you've been able to see about me is that I am a candidate who deeply believes in system change because I believe we need system change. I believe that we have an incredible opportunity and we need to reform and rebuild our democracy, our economic, and our political systems to center real people. And I hope that that came through tonight. I also really deeply believe that if the House of Representatives is more representative of the communities that it serves, if it has more women in it, more working class people, more people of color, more queer people in the Congress, more representative, more like the communities it serves, that we will get better outcomes and we will be able to have a diversity of thought and opinions to create these systems that really center people. And I also believe that this is a moment where we need women's leadership, in a moment that is defined by people like Jeffrey Epstein and Eric Swalwell. I believe that we need more women in power. I'm not asking you to trust a politician right now. I'm asking you to bet on yourselves. I'm asking you to trust ordinary people, all of us, to organize, to come together, and to bet on the fact that when ordinary people have a vision for our democracy, when they are unbought, we can make that happen. We can still change this country. We can still live up to the founding ideals that we hold so clear. And so I'm asking you for your vote. Not once, but twice for all of you Butte, Glenn, Tehama, and Lassen County residents. It would be the honor of my life to continue to serve my communities and to be able to do it in this specific way. Thank you.
Wow. I want to thank all of you, and I want to pretend like I totally expected us to be right on time. It's 9 p.m., and we have reached the end of our program. I understand that the live broadcast is going to take a break.
Yeah, from the bottom of our hearts, we'd like to extend gratitude for the three of you coming to address us in the North State.
Thank you for the hard work.
And on Mother's Day, I'd like to say thank you to the mother of my children for allowing me to participate tonight. Thank you, Jen.